going back to the project that you mentioned before Lightning Studios, which is LitGPT,
Mhm.
you described how the idea here is for it to be a human readable LLM. So could you go into a bit more detail for me on what that means? Like maybe go through a typical kind of user story where that human readable element is part of the story.
Mm. Yeah, that's good point. So I should clarify human readable, maybe more like for the developer rather than the user. So it's like the focus is to have more like minimal code. So originally, this project originated from Andrej Karpathy's NanoGPT. So that was a repository for GPT-2, and LitGPT originated from that in that sense that this is more like a minimal implementation of LLMs compared to, let's say, Hugging Face Transformers, which is like a whole library that is huge and which is awesome. There are a lot of features, but if you want to experiment with an LLM, it is a bit more intimidating. So I think the user interface to Hugging Face Transformers is great. It's easy to use, but then if you do research and you want to, you want to implement for the first time multi-query attention instead of regular multi-head attention, that is, I think, a bit trickier then. And LitGPT is more like, I would say, minimal in the sense that keeping the lines of code small and also keeping the number of files small so that it is easier to inspect. Now, I must say, it started out very simple. It was actually called LitLlama, where it was only focused on the Llama architecture by Meta. But then it grew a bit into LitGPT, a bit more complicated. So we still have both. We have LitLlama, which is, I would say, if you only care about Llama models, I would use that one because it's a bit even simpler. But since we then started to support also other models like Falcon and MPT, Pythia, and right now I'm working on Olmo and Gemma. So since we are also supporting all these other types of models, you also have to make a few more modifications to these. Like, for example, if this model, then do that. And for example, instead of multi-head attention, use multi-query attention. And so in that sense, it is a bit more complicated, but the aim is still on minimalism, like to keep things simple. And then also for the fine tuning, there are the normal full parameter fine tuning, but also LoRa, QLoRa adapters, and I wanted to also add Dora, which is this new weight decoupled LoRa version, which is very promising. So in that sense, it's a platform to easily do these things, to add these things. I mean, easy in quotation marks because it is still not super trivial. It's it requires still work, so it's not like it's not for free in terms of you still have to work on it. So, but it is open source, and if you like this type of approach, it's just a slightly different approach. I think that might be a useful project to check out. So people liked it a lot when they worked on the NeurIPS efficiency challenge, but of course there are so many other options too. I think what's cool though is that each library or repository has a completely different approach. There is like the Hugging Face Transformers, which is like a Python session basically that you run. LitGPT is more script based. Then there's something like Axolotl, for example, where it's more configuration file based. And so you have all these different types. And I think I wouldn't even say one is better than the other. It really depends on the project. And what's also nice is, of course, you can save the checkpoints and load them in the other libraries. So the checkpoints we use in LitGPT are, for example, most of them from the Hugging Face Model Hub. So it's you can convert them back and forth. So it's not like it doesn't lock you in. You can basically choose whatever tool you like for or need for your current project, essentially.
Nice. So when you say human readable, it isn't that the developer is literally writing natural language. It's that it's that there's less code. It's easy to
Yeah.
read code.
Yeah, that's maybe the way to put it. So it's
Got it.
not
Got it.
like
Got it.
DSPy or something like that, where it's a human language format that goes into the LLM. It's more really like the code. It's if you heard of like NanoGPT by Andrej Karpathy, it's basically like that, but with more advanced, like it grew out of that, but it has support for other LLMs and also more optimization, basically like multi GPU support, quantization, and these types of things. But in that sense, readable that it is minimal. But yeah.